Hey everyone, this is Johnny. Welcome to episode 79 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I'm here today with Randy Grant. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, John?
So where are we and where are you from and how did we meet?
I'm originally from Mississippi, and that's where I met my wife, and we got jobs with the Department of Defense working in Japan overseas, and we worked there for 16 years until we early retired last year. And actually, my wife saw your blog, and that's where she first met you. And then when we moved into this apartment down here, or this condo, she saw you at the pool, and that's where she recognized your face, and that's kind of how it all started.
That's funny. So Randy's my neighbor. We are in his apartment, which is literally right across from mine here in Chiang Mai.
Yeah.
How do you like living here?
I love it. It's it's everything we had hoped for. We had been to Chiang Mai before, and this was kind of number one on our retirement spot to come here for at least a year.
So the reason why I wanted to have you on the show is you're living here, you're enjoying life, you're traveling around, but you're kind of the opposite of my normal guests who are still working. So you're retired.
I am officially retired, yes.
At age 40?
I'm 46 now, but retired at 45, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Right.
it's pretty good.
So for most people, they kind of dream of retiring at 65. An early retirement would be 55. But in reality, do you think most people back in the US are even going to be able to fully retire at any point?
Probably not. Back on our blog site, we even talked about how if you watch the news and you listen to those people and they kind of tell you, oh man, you're never going to retire. You need to work forever. And, maybe then when you're 95, you might be able to retire or something. It's just kind of ridiculous sometimes.
So I used to dream about, retiring and then traveling the world or doing whatever happened to retire, I guess. And it used to be a big dream of mine to be able to just never work again and just say, okay, if I can get X amount of money saved up, then I'll never work again. But I think my mindset's actually changed now, where even when I'm 65, I actually wouldn't mind still kind of doing a little bit of what I do now, because I can do it anywhere, number one, and then I kind of enjoy it. So I definitely don't want to work at a job I hate when I'm 55 or 65 or 75. Definitely don't want to be working at McDonald's or something, trying to get by.
Right.
But if it's just some kind of online business, especially if it's something not too stressful, or let's say when I'm 65, all I do then is write books, or all I do is the podcast, I'd be okay with that.
Right. I think if you're happy doing what you're doing, by all means. Now, realize we've only been doing this a year, so I don't know what's going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Now, my wife has already found that she needs to be doing something, and so she's already went back to volunteering and doing some other things and keeping very active because she needs that. Right now, I'm still kind of basking in the glow of the hard work I put in the previous 25 years.
So you're okay with just having no responsibilities and just waking up and like, what do I want to do today?
What? In a nutshell, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
For right now. Yeah. For right now, yes, absolutely. But even being here, we've kept busy. I've scratched a couple things off my bucket list that I wanted to do this year. And that's been really good. It gave me the freedom to do it. When I was teaching, it was very difficult to get the time off. Well, I wanted to go to Everspace Camp, and it takes 3 weeks, and it's very difficult to have that kind of time off. The summertime is the worst time to go there, and the winter time to the spring is the best. So this allowed me to do that. So
before I moved out here, I think I was 28. So quarter life crisis, I would
Right.
say. I had went through 20 years of school, or whatever it is, and graduated college, started working straight away, and I got burnt out. And I said, what, I don't want to do anything. I just want to hibernate, and that was my dream. So I understand, when after I can't even imagine working for 25 years.
Yeah.
So I was working for let's say 5 years, and I was like, I need a break. And when I first moved to Thailand, I moved to Koh Tao, and I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to have any responsibilities. And my dream was to be able to not have to answer my phone, a voicemail, an email, nothing. I was like, I don't want to do anything. And I did that for a few months, and I think that really kind of just reset me.
Right.
And I think that's, so that's a very, very reasonable thing to do,
Right.
especially if you've been working for so long.
Right, but now you're doing what you love to do. And that, I think that's what it's all about. And I think for people who retire early, I think I think the key to it, and we're finding that out, especially after our first year, is retiring to something, not from something. And I think we were a little disillusioned, even though we knew this was probably going to come. And I think the adjustment was difficult at first. And we're still going to have to find our feet. We're still trying to, there's still a lot of places we want to go and see. And so that's going to keep us pretty active. But at some point, we're going to have to start to settle and slow down the travel a little bit. And then for sure, I see myself doing something. So
more of a hobby or more of like a side job?
I don't know yet. I right now I've kind of blocked it out of my mind to be honest, and I'm not really thinking something will fall in place. I taught for 20 years, so there's always that calling. There's always that call to help people and teach and do things like that. Who knows? I'm trying to keep an open mind. I'm not pushing anything. So if something pops up, hey, there we go.
So with Larissa, so she just got back. She was back in South Africa for 2.5 months. So if you guys remember the episodes from 2.5 months ago, we were in Taiwan, and she went back home to South Africa, and I came back to Chiang Mai to just put my head down and work. And she's been back now for a few weeks, and it was so needed for her to go back and, number one, be around family and friends, but also to have kind of a set, I don't want to say a set schedule, but like a purpose. So she was volunteering at some orphanages there, and then now that she's back in Chiang Mai, she realized that she can't just have a free schedule like mine, because some people like waking up and be like, okay, what should I do today? Right. And some people like to know what they're doing. Right. So that's why she signed up for Thai classes. So she's going to be able to speak Thai much better than me pretty soon. But I think most of it is just, knowing, okay, every day between, 8 and 10, she's going to go to class. And then every day, every Monday, Friday, she has yoga. And every whatever day, she has something else.
Right. Lori's the same way. She's definitely a more of a structure than I am. And that works for her. I'm a little bit more, even though I like structure. I'm kind of used to that. I've been in the military, I joined when I was 17. So I know that structure, and that's been part of me. But at the same time, maybe because, I worked, like 3 jobs when we first got married. We had our son early on in our marriage, and it was just a lot of work, that was going on that I never had a chance to sit back and relax. And so now I think I'm just finally saying, okay, I just need this time to kind of maybe decompress after all those years, but something will come back on. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
So do you ever have any regrets at all about not taking, let's say, a mini retirement earlier, or are you perfectly happy saying, let me put in all the work up front, and then I gotta really, at 45, still super young, you could still do whatever you want?
Well, the goal, and this is kind of weird, and I guess some people wouldn't even believe me, but my idea of early retirement came when I was like 15 years old.
Wow.
And, my grandfather was kind of my mentor with savings and stuff. He always said, Randy, make sure you save 10% of everything you make. And I always had this idea of like, if I make 50, 55, I'd like to, stop working full time and then go out and just see the world and travel. And, it just happened a little bit sooner than I thought. Just things worked out, and
So did you start saving when you were 15?
Absolutely, yeah. I started dabbling a little bit in the stock market. My grandfather helped me out a little bit. I took some of my money, he kind of matched it, and we bought some stock, and he showed me how that thing worked. And then as soon as actually I had money when I first got my job, we started putting a couple $100 a month away, and it slowly started snowballing until where we could. So
do you think, for most people, they think, if I start having $1,000 extra, then I can start investing. But do you think just by putting those couple $100 in had helped?
I think if you put $10 away, you just got to get into the mindset of starting to save, and it's hard in the beginning because when you don't have a lot of money and you start saving, you don't see that nest egg growing very much. And that's what I had to convince my wife when we first kind of started. It was very small increments. But then once you start seeing, when you get into it about 20 years and you start seeing the effect of compounded interest, you're like, okay, this thing is really working.
So can you kind of quickly explain why compounded interest is such a powerful thing?
I think because, again, you don't see it when it's, if $1, and it's just say you're going to make 10%, and you're like, okay, well, there's $1.10. But when you start and that money starts building, and let's say you talk about $100,000, now you're talking $10,000, and that now you start to
that's a big difference.
That's a significant amount of money. Now it takes time to get to that point, but once you do, and that portfolio keeps building, it goes. And there's people saying, well, I'm scared of the market. And as we were talking the other night at dinner, I went through 2 different market corrections. The tech bubble burst in the late 90s, and then the housing bubble burst in 8, and still we had enough to retire early because we talked about buying stocks on sale.
Were you ever tempted to take your money out when it was going down?
Never. I actually, and we talked about this as well, I actually increased our monthly contributions. We put even more in. I called my financial advisors and we upped it for, I don't even know how much at the time, but we said, let's buy more.
So I think even without knowing what stocks you're investing in or what funds, or like it's almost irrelevant. I think if someone had invested, a couple $100 a month since they were 15, and then every time the stock market went down, they bought more instead of selling, I think they would be able to retire at 45 as well.
Right, yeah. It's the market, if from its inception, if you look at it like a stair step.
Yeah.
It's up and down, but at the same time, it's always going up. And that's how it's always been.
Yeah, so I absolutely 100% agree with that, and that's why I'm really glad that I started investing now. But I think technically, when I was pretty young too, like I think when I was 15, I was like, I should save, and then I just stopped. I think when I was 15, I started putting $200 a month in after my first job working at the ice cream store, and I did that until I got to college, and then I had excuses. I'm like, oh, I have, I don't have a job now, and I need that $200 to support myself through college. But if I had just forced myself, saying, you know what, I have to figure something out, man, that money would be worth so much now.
Right. Yeah, but I understand too, when you're in late teenage years, early 20s, investing's not on your mind.
Yeah.
You're thinking like 65 is about 1 billion years down the road, and you're thinking about cars, you're thinking about going out with your friends, dates, the whole bit, and that's your main focus. And it's tough to still have that in your mind that, I need to invest for the future. It's hard as a young person to figure out that you got to invest for the future.
But I think the best way to think about it is the opposite. So what you don't want is to get compounded interest on your credit cards.
Right.
So let's say you owe a couple $1,000s.
Right.
If you let that interest compound, man, you're gonna be so underwater. You're gonna be so overwhelmed within 5 or 10 years. I mean, let's say you only paid the minimum, or you didn't pay anything. You paid 0,
right,
and you let that interest build up. It'd be insane. And what's cool about investing is it's almost the opposite, where instead of you owing people money, you're letting that interest compound towards your favor.
Right.
So I think when people think that way, they're like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because they tell you if you buy like a $3,000 couch and you just pay the minimum, you'll never pay the couch off, or if you do, you paid however many much money it was.
So just completely guessing that $3,000 couch might be $60,000 by the time you end up paying it off, which also means if you saved $3,000, that money might be worth $60,000 someday.
I think the first time I really was shocked by interest rates was when we bought our first house. At the time, 9% was a decent interest rate, compared to what it is now. But they give you the amortization schedule. And I think our first house was around like $75,000 or something like that. But at the end of that 30-year mortgage, it was going to cost me $212,000 for that house. And I was like, that's unbelievable. So like you said, if you can look at saving that type of money, and that's what compounded interest does at the end of that 30 years, that's a nice chunk of change.
How old were you when you bought that first house?
When we first got married, I was 23.
Okay. So it sounds like you kind of grew up as a typical American, went after the American dream. So you went to college?
Yep.
Where'd you go to school?
I was at the University of Southern Mississippi.
All right. And then you got married when you were 22, you said?
Yeah, 23. I was just finishing. I had about another year to go in my teaching degree. Met my wife. We got married. Had a son about a year after that. So it was pretty much a normal American, upbringing, and pretty much the ideal one. Go to school, get good grades, get a good job, have a kid, have a house. Would you ever buy a house again? I would not. I had that house. I've had rental properties before. But for our lifestyle that we have now, we just travel and rent. And because, like, we're here in Thailand, if you hear about all the civil unrest around the world, and since that's where we're going to be traveling, if something happens, we can just pack up our suitcases and we can leave. We still have family back in the States, so we do stay with them when we go. And maybe down the road, maybe when we get into our 60s, if we find something that maybe we want to have a short-term place in the States, we could put some money down on something that if, maybe his grandkids there or something, who knows.
Do you think you would sign another 30-year mortgage?
I was thinking, I thought about that before. I'm like, okay, let's say if I'm 70 years old and I do a 30-year mortgage, let's say it's $500 a month, I'm going to be dead before it comes due anyway. So, maybe it doesn't really matter.
So I'm thinking, okay, so I don't know what's going to happen if I ever move back to the U.S. and ever buy a house. But I'm thinking, 100%, I don't want to pay it off over 30 years, unless it makes some kind of financial sense. But I mean, it's a complicated thing, but I'm pretty sure most people would kind of just lie to themselves. They buy a house they can't actually afford. They can, they can make the payments, but they can't actually afford that house.
Right.
And they never even look at that number, that amortization number.
Right.
Like, what is this $500,000 house going to cost me
right.
at the end of the 30 years? I think nobody looks at that.
Well, even before we took our job overseas, we refinanced to 15 years. I think our payment went up maybe like $50 a month or $70 a month, but we dropped the thing down to 15 years. So I knew what I wanted to do, but at the time interest rates were just so high.
Was there a way that you could have kept the 30-year mortgage but just paid extra principal every month?
Yeah, I probably could have done that, but I went from 9% down to 6.5%.
Okay,
so that's a pretty significant chunk just to do that alone. And then if you wanted to pay on the principal on top of that, but we kind of knew that we probably wouldn't stay in that house, and almost right at 2 years, we were selling the house and moving overseas.
Who made that decision?
Oh, we both did. We always wanted something more. And we always thought about going just to North Carolina. We loved the mountains and places like that. And we went up to D.C. for a job fair. And about a week later, we got called and we sold the house. We sold both our cars. We were selling everything in our garage. It was funny because people came up to the garage sale. There's a for sale sign in the house, and on the cars like, "Are y'all getting a divorce or something?" Oh. That's what we were just selling everything. And we were on a plane within a month, and we were in outside of Tokyo, Japan, for 2 years, and then we moved to northern Japan, and that's where we spent the last 14 years.
Any regrets?
Absolutely none. We absolutely loved Japan. It was a fantastic experience. Our son essentially grew up in Japan, since he was 5. And even for him, it's more home to him than the U.S. is, because we would only go back to the States in the summertime for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and most of his time was spent in Japan. So
how old was he when you guys moved there?
5.
How was that raising a kid in a foreign country in Japan?
Well, again, as I've told you before, we were working on a U.S. military installation. So it's like little America. I think our base was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 15,000 people. We had Taco Bell on there, Burger King, Popeye. So it was like taking a little chunk of the U.S. and plopping it down. So we were exposed, because we taught on the base, we were exposed to Americans more than we were Japanese. But we tried to get off and mingle, and we did, I think, a pretty good job with that, being part of the community of Japanese that were there.
So the school was all other, people that worked for the DoD?
Right. Okay. They are, enlisted officers, kids that, worked there.
Do you think it would have been very, possible or different if you weren't part of that, and you were just living in Japan, or let's say living here?
I think that would have been an interesting concept to have just lived, like we used to say, live on the economy. I think that would have been really cool because, one, we would have been absolutely 100% fluent. I hate telling people that I lived in Japan for 16 years and I'm not absolutely 100% fluent in Japanese, but 80%, 90% of our day was in English, dealing with Americans on the base constantly. And by the time you got home, you're so exhausted from work that, you just didn't want to try to learn something else. But again, that's our fault, and I feel embarrassed. I really do about it. But it's still, that'd have been an interesting concept to live on the economy and do it 100%. I still think we would have had a great time doing that.
I like that. Yeah. Very, very interesting kind of story, because I'm sure most people listening to the show, have considered saying, hey, should I raise a family in a different country? But most of them aren't going to have access to the military base. It's not like just a civilian can walk up and say, hey, I want to put my kids here.
Right. Well, actually you can, but it's just going to cost you money.
Okay.
You have to pay tuition, and it's pretty pricey.
Okay.
It's almost like sending your kid to college. I think it's to send a kid to a Dodia school overseas. I think in Japan, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like $20,000 a year or something. It was pretty significant. But there were some Japanese families that sent their kid because they wanted them exposed to that, and there were some people who don't have certain sponsorships and they would have to pay tuition. So yeah.
And I'm sure there's some kind of hack around that. So either the husband or wife can get a job there.
Right. You can get what we call SOFA status, status of forces agreement. And whether you're working at the base exchange or you try to find some place that you can get an ID card and that SOFA status, and that entitles you to the benefits for the base. Yeah.
That's the travel hack of the day.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So would you move back to Japan?
I really would. We absolutely just loved it, especially where we lived. It was kind of in the country, but we had 4 seasons. Coming from Mississippi, where we kind of had hot and it cooled off and it got hot again. We really saw snow for the first time when we moved to the northern part of Japan, and we just loved it. We loved the community we were in. We had great Japanese friends. We got great American friends. It was just a great place to raise a family, to experience life there, experience that culture. It was fabulous.
So would you move back there, or would you move to Tokyo?
Tokyo is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. It's fantastic. It's a big city, but there's so much to do down there. It's just the price, to live. Day-to-day living, you can go by, and we talked about, you can go by and you can eat cheaply in some places, but when you have to go to the grocery store and, an apartment this size down there, you'd be paying $3,000 or $4,000 a month.
Oh, U.S. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty pricey in certain things. Yeah.
So we're in Randy's apartment. It's a very sweet place. It's similar to my layout, but just bigger. And you have bigger living room, like a bigger L-shaped couch, a really cool bathtub that has a glass wall to the to the bedroom. Is that why you got the place?
Well, Lori saw the rain shower. She's like, "Oh yeah, so the rain shower's separate," and she loves a tub, So it just fell into place. I think, but a lot of stuff's in white. So I think after we were here a while, she's like, "I wish everything wasn't so in white, because it shows the dirt and everything." But this has been a great place. The building's nice. We have the pool, the gym, and all the things that come with it. It's in a great location.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic neighborhood where we live.
So what would the equivalent of this in Mississippi be?
An apartment like this, it's so hard for me to tell you that, because I've been away from the States living for 17 years now, and it's sticker shock when we go back. I don't know the prices of cars really. I don't know the prices of houses or apartments, because that's not on my radar when I go back. I just know cereal's like $5 a box, and that's like super expensive.
What's funny is my sister, she has decided to sell their house so they can buy rental properties, and such a smart move by her. And she was actually inspired by reading some books I recommended, and also listening to this guy named Grant Cardone's show, where he talks about buying apartments to rent out. And I really applaud her, because when the first time she told me about it was she was at my cousin's house for, I think it was over 4th of July. It was a barbecue, and my cousin went on the phone and she's showing me her new house that she's moved into. I think they just upgraded again. Every few years they just have to move into a bigger house, and she showed me the view. It's across the river across the bridge from San Francisco, so kind of the Sausalito area, which is really expensive.
Right. And
it was beautiful. The view was incredible. The house was gigantic. It was at least 5 bedrooms, if not bigger. And I was just thinking, man, for those 2 minutes, I was envious. I was like, that's what I would want. And I can only imagine my sister being there, seeing that, and being like, that's what I want as well. But I was so proud of her, where she was like, oh, it's a great place, but that's not what we want. We want a place, and their house was beautiful as well. But they realized we don't even need that, because I think they had like a 4-bedroom house, and this is them. They have 2 young kids. No, actually, no, sorry, 5-bedroom house, and they're like, we don't need that big of a place that's that fancy. We might as well use that money and make money from it.
Right.
So they're selling their house. They moved into a rental property, and it's $4,500 a month.
I can't even fathom, because you can live well here in Chiang Mai for what, 2 or 3 months on that kind of money.
Yeah, and I know they were downgrading. They were like, okay, let's get a smaller place,
Right.
and it's still almost $5,000 a month. That's insane to me.
Right. I almost think that you have to get these bigger homes. Like maybe if you want the nicer schools.
Yeah.
Well, that's only in these nicer neighborhoods. Well, houses are maybe start at 3,000 square feet and go up. And if you're just 2 people, do you really need 3,000 square feet? This thing is less than 500 square feet, and we're perfectly fine.
I actually have a big fascination of looking at YouTube for tiny homes. Have you ever seen those?
Oh, those little ones that you can buy. It's almost like on a trailer or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are pretty cool.
And I don't know if I'd actually want to live in one, but I really like the idea of it. I like the idea of efficiency, of building things well, and then not having too much junk, just, being minimalistic. Speaking of which, you've been in Chiang Mai for how long now?
Almost a year.
And when you pack up to leave, what would you be, like, what have you been traveling with?
When we retired last year, we sold everything we own. We sold every vehicle, every piece of furniture. The only thing we kept is some of our military documents that we needed, and some pictures and videotapes, and we put that into like 2 or 3 plastic tubs that fit under Lori's mom's bed. And all we have is our carry-on luggage. We only travel with carry-on. We don't check baggage. So again, when it's time for us to go, we, who wants what, they can have it. We'll throw away the other stuff. We pack our clothes and we walk out the door and toss them the keys. That's it. We are absolute minimalists when it comes to that.
That's insane. I mean, I understand, wanting to travel with just some checked baggage, but why just carry on? Why not check one bag?
Because since we've been traveling, living overseas gave us the opportunity to travel a lot, and we just got down to be able to pare down what we had, because when we went on vacation, we tended to wear the same things over and over again. Now, of course, Lori has different issues than I do. Give me a couple t-shirts and some shorts and I'm good to go. But she learned to mix and match, and she's written a couple blogs about being a minimalist, and I think she even wrote for another lady who was asking her what she did. And you can find those on our blog about what she packs, because I think the women are a little bit more fascinated than the guys are. Like I said, we're pretty simple. But what she packs, how she packs, and how she mixes and matches different outfits.
I'll make sure I have a link to your blog. This is episode 79, so you go to the show notes, or you can just go to freetirement.weebly.com.
That's it.
Yeah. So what made you guys even want to start a blog? Because I know that's not like an income source or anything.
No, it's absolutely not. It's not a great blog. I think when we first did it, it was more of an online diary for us. That way, friends and family who wanted to check in and see what we were doing, and especially we started about a year before we actually retired. And it was kind of us going through the thought process of what's happening now. This is, if these things happen, we're going to be able to retire at the end of this year. So it was kind of therapeutic for us to do that. And we've gone along and blogged about a couple little things. Like I say, you're not going to find us blogging every day or every other day and putting tons of stuff up. But we put pictures of where we traveled or cool little things. Like I think I just posted something yesterday about airfare and traveling in Chiang Mai, because I got a great deal on Lion Air, one-way tickets. Lori and I both going down when we fly out. Taxes and everything was like $23.
Wow.
It was crazy. I was just like, you just can't do that anywhere.
So what are your travel plans? Because you're leaving here pretty soon.
Yeah, we're leaving here at the beginning of September, going to Europe for a couple months. So we're going to move around Eastern Europe. We have some friends there we're going to stay with, and then see some of the places that you've already blogged about on your blog, which is great. So you already gave us a great tour of that stuff. And we're going to take a repositioning cruise back from Italy back to Florida. Nice. And we're going to see our son graduate, and then we plan on moving toward Central and South America for a few years and try that out.
It's a lot of the place. So let's start with Europe. What made you decide to go to Europe after this?
Well, it's kind of on the way. Yeah. We have some friends there that saw us in Japan, and we want to see them in their hometown. And we have a lot of people we worked with back in Japan who've since moved to Germany working for the Department of Defense over there. And I said, well, let's go to Budapest and Prague and all those places and see that part of Europe, which we haven't done before. And then the cruise back to to the U.S. is kind of cool. If you haven't heard about repositioning cruises, you don't know about those. Those are really neat things to do.
So what actually is that?
A repositioning cruise is when they take the ship from one location, they move it to its winter home or its summer home, and so it's a one-way trip. It doesn't come back to the port that you started in, but you can get great deals on these things back to the States. I know some of the cheapest one I've seen so far this year is on a Norwegian cruise. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $600 for a 2-week cruise, which includes all your meals, all your sleeping, your entertainment, and you're going to pay that for a flight, for one 8 or 9 hour flight back.
So how did you find that?
Oh, they're just on just about every cruise website you can even think of. There's just tons of there's cruise.com, cruisedeals.com, vacations to go. And I just kept playing around with them, finding the best one that we want. And plus we're going to celebrate Lori's 50th birthday, on that cruise, and so.
Oh wow, that's nice.
So it's gonna.
That's a heck of a deal too.
Oh, it absolutely is. We paid a little bit more to have a balcony because we always have the inside cabin because that's always the cheapest. So we paid a little bit more. We're like, okay, let's do it.
So what did you pay for that cruise?
Let's see. We're on the Celebrity Constellation, which is kind of they say an upgrade from Norwegian, I guess, and soup to nuts. Taxes, gratuities, the whole shoot match was a little under $3,500 for a balcony.
Okay. For both of you?
For both of us.
Oh, nice.
That's everything. So, like I said, we could have cut at least $1,000 or more if we would have went with an inside cabin.
Okay.
But she wanted something a little more, and I'm not going to argue. I think that's great.
Yeah. It's her birthday. It's a big year, so.
Right.
But I would imagine that for most of the time, you're not going to spend that much time in the room anyways.
Right.
So if someone wants to save some money, the inside cabin's fine, right?
Right. And so that's normally how we would do it. But she was like, "Yeah, let's kind of splurge on this one." I said, "Okay, no problem."
Nice. All right. So, how much would that have been if it wasn't a reposition cruise? Do you know how big of a discount that is?
Well, if you look online and you look at just a normal 7-day cruise, you're going to pay that price and then some for a balcony, and that's for half the time. And it still makes stops. It's not like it goes straight from Rome straight to Fort Lauderdale. I think we go up to Pisa and Cartagena, Spain. It goes to Morocco and a couple stops in the Canaries. Then it's 7 straight days. Now that's where I'm going to probably go a little stir crazy. But it's just an interesting, cheap way. And you don't have to worry about jet lag.
Yeah, I think that's be cool. Yeah. I absolutely love to do that. I would do that just for fun. Do you know if there's going to be any internet on the boat?
They do have internet, but it's, I think it costs you usually your firstborn per minute. It's very expensive. I think, if you get suite cabins, I think they throw in, different stuff. But I can do it. I can get internet at the ports that we go to, go to a cafe and get free internet. But I can do without the internet for a week. It's not going to kill me.
So that's actually my goal in the future, is to be able to completely leave for 2 weeks at a time.
Right.
And not have to check any email at all. Like the way that my life is set up right now, I'm pretty happy, working once in a while. I can kind of just go in maintenance mode. So some days I'm only working for an hour,
right? And
I'm okay with that, But the one thing I can't do is just go on a 2-week cruise. So that is going to be my, I don't want to say retirement goal, but definitely a goal that I'm going to have in the future.
Well, hopefully in the future too, that the price will come down. There'll be more, the internet connections will be better on these ships. And then that will make it a little easier for you if you had to go back and check, your website.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The other thing I'd want to do in the future is in Spain, there's a walk on the Camino de Santiago, which is a 30-day pilgrimage where you walk from one end of Spain, pretty much the border of France, and you walk to the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow.
And it takes about 30 days, but there's places to sleep every night that are only, they only take people on, like you can't just show up there. You have to actually have this, they call it a passport, but it's basically in the start of the walk, you get this booklet, and every night they stamp you, and then you pay like a small amount of money, you can sleep there. And they only allow people on this walk to sleep there. So if you don't have the previous stamp, they say, sorry, this is only for pilgrims.
Right.
And I think it's cool because then you can, basically for 30 days you can see the whole country. You can stop and have different food every night. They make great wine, and you meet people on the way. I don't know that, and that's definitely a goal I want to do in the future.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that in our position allows you to do.
Yeah.
You know, that I was in the last blog post I just did, we talk about traveling in the off seasons, you know, the non-peak times and the deals that you can get. You know, we of course we had to, you know, our visa's going to run out at the beginning of September, but if I could have waited just 1 week, the airfare that I wanted was going to drop by over $100 just by waiting 1 more week, you know. And so as soon as you can get into those lower peak times.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Or even like when you do go back to the US, if you want to go to Vegas, don't go on a weekend.
Right.
You know, you can get a room at the Bellagio or any 5-star hotel for less than $100 if you are happy to go there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Right.
It's just the flexibility, and not everybody has that flexibility. When we were teachers, you know, it was the 2 weeks at Christmas, the spring break, and it seems like everybody who was in the tourist industry knew what teachers were off, and because the families would be off too. And that's when they would travel, and the prices just go up. So now we have the ability to travel on the non-peak time, so you get the best deals. You can just walk into a hotel, you know, that's maybe $100 a night, and you can get them down to 50 or, you know, even lower sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And what's cool is, so in both, you know, your case now where you did the early retirement, and then also the majority of people listening to this who are the digital nomads, you can both take advantage of it, you know. And I think it's, you know, it's such a different way of living than the normal 9 to 5, work till you're 65, and then only have holidays, you know, during those same 2 weeks that everyone else has a holiday. So it's funny that your life and the life that a lot of these nomads are living are actually very similar.
Right. I admire what they're doing because, you know, they've kind of broken the norm of what, you know, sitting in the cubicle office and working 9 to 5, and they've taken their job on the road, and they still get to enjoy the perks. You know, you get to enjoy the perks of Chiang Mai and the low cost of living, but you're still doing, you know, the job that you love to do, and you know, you're making money at it. That's a great thing to do.
Yeah. And, you know, you get to do this when you're 46,
right,
and not when you're 66.
Right.
Which is, I mean, because you can imagine. So for me, I used to think there's only two major things that were kind of mutually exclusive: time and money. You either have a lot of extra money, but you have no time because you're working so much, or you have a lot of free time, but you have no money because you're not working. And it wasn't until I was at a coffee shop, at a Pete's Coffee in San Francisco, I think it was about a year ago, and I met a guy who shared a table with me just because it was busy. And his story is really interesting. He was telling me that he just retired, and he started traveling the world. But I can kind of see something in his eye where he just wasn't that happy. And I think it was because, and I asked him how old he was, and he was 70. And he's like, and he just retired. And now he has time and he has money because he had worked so much that he has a great pension. And now he's retired, so he has completely free time. But what he's missing is the youth and the health and the vitality. So, that's not an option now either. Now there's 3 things on my list.
Well, we kind of call it, you have your go years, your slow years, and your no-go years. So we're still in our go years, and we want to do as much and see as much as we possibly can, because we're eventually going to slow down. That's going to happen, and then at some point it's going to be very difficult to move a lot. So you've got to get it in while you can. And people say, "Oh, I admire that," and I wish I could do that. But it's difficult. I understand that people are in tough spots, and I was very fortunate to have the opportunities that we've had and been able to see what we've seen and do what we're doing.
So if you can. Let's say you had to do it all over again. Well, first off, would you do it all over again?
Oh, in a heartbeat.
Okay.
I probably would have been able to retire even earlier. If I'd known now, I probably wouldn't have, like we were saying, probably wouldn't have ate out as much and would have saved that. Because the people who kind of mentored us, we read their blog, was they retired at 38, Billy and Acacia Catterley, and they have a blog called Retire Early Lifestyle, and they are just phenomenal people. They're now just turned 60, and they've been doing this thing for so long, and it's really incredible to read what they've done, and they've been great. They answered our questions, anything that we've ever done, and they've been a great help. We've always missed them. We've always been like, when we were coming to Chiang Mai, we missed them by one day. They were here in Chiang Mai, but I think now they're back in Guatemala, and maybe we'll see them when we go back to Central and South America next year.
So you mentioned you're going to go to Central America. is that just because you want to go?
Yeah, we haven't been down there. You know, I went to Mexico on a part of Children's International Summer Village when I was like 15. But we want to go down to Guatemala, then Ecuador, and Argentina. And I just want to see it. I haven't been there. You know, so, and my wife hasn't either, so it's just a new place to see. We know a lot about Southeast Asia. You know, living in Japan, this was a lot of vacation trips for us is to come here. And we've been to Europe a few times, but Central and South America haven't, so I'm curious.
So I don't think I wrote anything on my blog about Guatemala. I think it's because it was definitely before I started JohnnyFD.com. So I'm going to see if I can find some photos or info about it. I'm going to write up a post. Not only just for you, but also just for my own personal thoughts, you know. So the main reason why I have my blog, it's probably a similar reason why you have yours, is not just to share it with other people, but it's nice to look back on it.
Right.
And it's fun, right?
Because you forget, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot I did that.
Yeah.
You know?
And like when people ask you advice, of what to do, where to go, I can just say, oh yeah, check out my blog post.
Right.
And it's because I wrote that for myself. And I wrote that for my friends, and it's like, for example, when you go to Prague, when you go to Berlin, I'm gonna have you read that post because that post is gonna be able to explain it better than I can now, because I probably forgot all those places.
Well, you already got me sold on the beer in Prague, so we're like, that's like one of the first places we're going. I can't wait.
The beer in Prague is so good. It was funny because I actually never uploaded the photos from that trip because I think I was so busy. I was like traveling so much. Went to like 4 different countries in 2.5 weeks, and then I came back when it was Larissa's birthday. That surprised her on, and then I don't know, just life got busy, so I just never uploaded the photos. And just the other day, I think about a week ago, I went through cleaning my hard drive, started uploading those photos, and somebody had mentioned that for my Prague album, I had a beer in every other photo.
It's okay though.
And no one's ever seen me drink beer anywhere else in the world. They're like, what happened to you? And I said, man, if you go to Prague, you're gonna know, because beers are always less than $2, and that's like in this touristy city center. But where we were staying, and I wrote the name of the hotel on there somewhere. It was basically in a castle. It was a castle hotel, and just around the corner from it, there was a little basement, brewery that we just stumbled upon. And I remember beer was 85 cents.
Wow!
And it was the best I've ever had in my life. It was so fresh that they said that it was made yesterday and it has to be drank that week because it's not pasteurized.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I love unfiltered, unpasteurized wheat beer, and it was delicious. And with every meal, I had a beer with every single meal.
But isn't that great when you're traveling, that when you just stumble on these little hidden gems that you never saw maybe in a guidebook, or all of a sudden it's just like the best thing.
It's fun to find. But I think there's also two sides to that, where I would hate it if let's say I missed out on some really cool places just because I never bothered to look at a guidebook or a blog.
Well, people tell us, oh, well, that's a tourist trap. I'm like, well, it's a tourist trap for a reason, because it's an important thing to see. Mm-hmm. So, I always take that with a grain of salt. I'm like, yeah, I want to go see it, going to Angkor Wat or, going different places, and you see these magnificent structures, but yeah, you got to go see them. Yeah, it might be touristy, but it's kind of once in a lifetime deal.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a mixture between those things. And let's say with like restaurants, I do like being able to just randomly stop in a place and try it out.
Right.
But at the same time, if I'm only there for, let's say, a few days, and there's like a must-eat, 5-star rated restaurant where everyone on TripAdvisor is saying this is the best in town, I want to go there as well.
Yeah. Well, I just typically when we get to a hotel, wherever we're going, Lori likes to relax and put her stuff up, and I'm like, I got to get out. She calls me a border collie. She says, I always got to be doing something. So I go out, and I basically try to get lost in whatever city I'm in. I'm up and down these back alleys, and I look for local places. You see the locals in there. You don't see another foreigner in there, and I'm like, well, let's try that place. The prices are usually great. The food's usually fabulous, and it's just a cool little atmosphere that you get. And that's kind of what I like to do when I'm going out.
I definitely like that as well. I think so. My biggest advice for everyone is, on your first day, just walk around. Don't look at a map. Don't Google anything. Just walk around and enjoy that.
Right.
But before your last day, before you leave, look on either TripAdvisor or Google some blogs.
Right.
And find out what are some things that you don't want to miss out on.
Yeah, you don't want to miss those important things that are they're there. But there's a lot to be found in other places too.
So Guatemala, and then all the way down to South America as well?
Yeah, I think we're going to go to we're just going to start, I think, working our way down. If Guatemala was good, maybe go down to Costa Rica, Panama, check some of those places out. Ecuador, Cuenca, Ecuador is very high on our list to get there. And then maybe further south. Like I hear Uruguay is one of the up-and-coming places. I'd like to check that out. I'd like to get down to the southern part of Argentina. Yeah.
Everyone I've met who's been through South America has said the most unexpected country in the whole place, the place they didn't think they would like, was by far not only the cheapest, but the best, like in every aspect. And it's Bolivia.
Bolivia, okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things where people are like, what? Bolivia? But I've heard people are nice. They said, I don't think anyone specifically said anything about the food, but no complaints. Everyone's saying it's the best places in South America.
Yeah,
so check that out.
Those are the things you just got to try, And we've got all the time in the world, so I'm willing to try it. What's it going to cost me, a week or 2 or 3 months?
Yeah.
Man.
And by far in Central America, so I haven't been to all of it, but I was in the Bay Islands. So there's Utila and Roatan, and there's Honduras, and then when I was working there, I was taking people scuba diving in Utila. Everyone would basically go through Costa Rica and then come down to us, and pretty much everyone said Costa Rica was overpriced, it wasn't that great, but every single person raved how good Guatemala was, and it was the best country in Central America by far.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait. I've seen the pictures there of Lake, I think it's Lake Atilan, if I'm not saying that correctly, and it just looks gorgeous hiking the lake. And you said you were there, right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
You know what? I'm gonna make a note right now because I need to find those photos because it was such a good time. And I think I would go back. I don't think there's a digital nomad scene there, but the not the capital. Don't go to Guatemala City.
No.
I've heard it's definitely not a safe place. There's nothing to see there.
Right.
But Antigua is Guatemala's Chiang Mai.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. That's not too far from Lake Atilan.
Yeah,
right?
you might actually have to go through there.
Is it on the way? Yeah.
I think it's on the way. And Antigua is awesome. It really reminds me of Chiang Mai. If I just threw you there and I spun you around a couple times, you would be like, oh, this might be Chiang Mai. And all I remember was they had like cobblestone streets. They had like lots of old architecture. Everybody's super friendly. Everything's super slow, and it was very safe. Right. Like I'd walk around there at night, never felt unsafe at all.
Good.
And what I did there was I did an Spanish immersion program where I stayed with the local family. They cooked for us 3 meals a day, and they didn't speak any English, so we had to speak Spanish to them. And it included 2 hours of private tutoring every day.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So within 2 weeks, my Spanish went from 0 to passable.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And I remember the first day we had lunch, they were asking me if I wanted tortillas, and I had no idea what they were saying. I just sat there and it was so uncomfortable. So what I did was that day during my tutoring, I said, like, look, I want to know how to communicate at dinner. And I said, what is please, what is thank you, what is, please pass me one more tortilla. And I wrote these things down, and I sat down at dinner, and I pulled out this little crumpled up piece of paper from my pocket. And I'm sure my pronunciation wasn't good. I'm, reading off a piece of paper, but we were able to communicate. Mm-hmm. And from that point on, I was like, if I just do this every day, I'll be good.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt with the Thai. I learned just enough Thai to probably embarrass myself, but the people laugh, and they're always thankful that you're trying, and they always look favorable upon that than just trying to speak English. So
the rest of with her Thai language courses she's doing now, she's been going to the Thai market. It's basically our farmers market, and she's been trying to talk in Thai the whole time. And even though her Thai, she's only been doing it for a week, so I'm sure her Thai's not very good yet. But the old ladies that work there love it. They see this blonde, white girl trying to speak Thai, and they want to help her.
Right.
So I think that's definitely the way to do it.
Right. Just getting involved, and nobody's gonna yell at you for trying the language. They're always gonna be appreciative.
Yeah. And by the way, so the reason why she's been going to the market, she's been juicing for us.
Yeah.
So we bought a juicer here. It's about $100. wasn't too bad. And we are not doing a juice cleanse, but we decided, why does it have to be either or? Everyone we meet that juices, they're doing a 21-day juice, cleanse diet, and that's all they drink. or they just don't do it at all. So we decided, well, why not just eat a normal diet and then also add the juice to it, just for the extra nutrients. And we've been doing that, and it's been fantastic.
So are you trying to lose weight or just eat healthier? What's the goal?
It's mainly just for health.
Okay.
I'm trying to lose weight anyways, just because I gained a ton of weight over the last couple months of traveling. And then Taiwan, I probably gained like 15 pounds just from all the pastries and breads and everything. But for her, she just wants to be healthy. She wants to, if anything, she wants to gain a little bit of weight. She wants to gain a little bit of muscle. But the juice is going to be just like, we figure we don't eat enough vegetables. And I've been ordering a side of vegetables, wherever we go. And trying to go to like a salad buffet once or twice a week,
right?
But it's still not enough. It's just not super easy to get tons of vegetables in,
right?
And most vegetarian places aren't actually vegetables; they're just like tofu and rice and bread. So we figured, why not add some greens into our diet? So I'm going to report back on how that goes. But so far, I honestly can't see any harm from it. Right. Just having an extra glass of green stuff every day. I think I actually do feel more energetic from it. I think the biggest problem is it's a pain in the butt to clean.
Yeah.
But I made a deal with Larissa. I said, you do all the juicing, all the cleaning, and I'll drink it.
Okay, well, I think that's pretty easy there.
Yeah.
You got the good end of that one.
So before we kind of wrap it up, let's say someone's back home listening to this podcast, and they just kind of heard us bragging about, retirement at 45 for you and, for me just moving out here. What from your point of view, what advice would you give, let's say, a friend or a cousin or someone who wants to do the same thing?
Well, if they want to do the same thing, then, I don't mind the advice, but not everybody wants to do this. We have plenty of people who says, I could never do that. And that's fine. This lifestyle is not for everybody. And, everybody, each to his own. They got to do what they want to do, and this is what we want to do. But if people want to do this, you kind of got to live by, what my grandfather said, pay yourself first. You've got to put that money away. And you can do things like, like healthcare, it was scary for us to leave. We gave up our health care. We pay out of pocket as we go, but you can do that in Thailand, because it's so inexpensive here. I can go to the doctors and have medicine or checkups or do whatever under what the premiums were going to cost us, with our insurance plan.
I actually remember looking into that. I was going to get health care before I came out here. And I was like, okay, it's $300 a month. I'm like, well, that's a lot of money, but I can afford it. I'll be fine. But then I decided to read the fine print. I'm like, okay, so what's my copay? And my copay was like 20 grand. And I was like, I can't afford that anyways. Why am I even doing this? Right. So I just never got it. And, knock on wood, but thankfully never really needed to do anything out here. But if you do, if it's like $1,000 out of your pocket to stay in a hospital for a week. Right.
Exactly. So this stuff you can't afford. And but again, it's, some people, and I think when we first started coming here to Thailand to have medical checkups, I think people thought we were in a straw hut with a witch doctor, taking care of us. But, when I went back and told them, I said, listen, my doctor studied at Harvard Med or Johns Hopkins, and, and he's certified over there and just came back to work in Thailand because, speaks fluent English. It's state-of-the-art equipment. And if you've been to Bumrungrad Hospital in Bangkok, it's unbelievable. It's like a 5-star hotel. And the care is phenomenal.
Medical tourism is a huge thing. And, for anything like that, like anything that isn't, so if you need to go to the emergency room, just go to the emergency room. Right. But if it's something that you can schedule 2-3 weeks from now, you can go to that hospital in Bangkok, stay there at a 5-star hotel room, and it'll still be cheaper, and you can have a free vacation and have 3 weeks to relax. Right. And then go home, and it'll still be cheaper.
Yeah, I always tell this story. My wife kind of rolls her eyes when I do, but it's really phenomenal because when our son came here, he was a little sick, and so we went over to Ram Hospital. So he had to see a specialist. He saw a gastroenterologist, had blood work done, got medicines, the doctor fees, and the whole thing was $25. The whole
That's
thing,
insane, yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way in the States that costs that, and so, how can you, fault doing that?
Yeah. Dental care, eye care, pretty much everything out here. I think the only thing that isn't any cheaper is LASIK.
Right. We talked about that. Yeah. LASIK is still, I think I can get that done in the States. And I'd like to have that done.
So what actually is your budget out here while you're traveling?
Well, it's been what our financial advisor told us we could afford, and what we're doing is way under what he said. Okay, he said, you can live on this much, and we basically cut that in half because we knew we were coming to Chiang Mai, and we knew we could, live on that. Now we've had some expensive months that have popped up. When Lori went back to the States, and a few little things like that unforeseen expenses which happened, but. Over the course of a year being here, we've had some very low months. And so when I went back and averaged it, I think that month that we had, I think we were somewhere in the neighborhood of $130 a day, which was quite a bit over what we normally were doing. But then when I averaged it with the other months, everything was still around $70 a day.
For both of you?
For both of us.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, so that's including, the rent, so that includes eating out, and we put it all on a chart, and I even did that in our blog. You can see our first 3 months. And then when we finish with Thailand, I'll put the entire year's expenses on there. You'll see where we had ups and downs, and then I'll tell you, that was our Thailand expenses, but we added some. Like when I went to Nepal, that's a separate expense that I kind of use with our government buyout money, but I'm still going to add that for the year's expenses so somebody can see what the total expenses were.
I'd be really interested in seeing that. Yeah. I just did the math, and you spend an average of $2,100 a month for both of you. Yeah,
that sounds pretty close to it. That's living well here in Thailand.
Yeah, this is like a really nice place. You don't need to live in this nice of a house.
No, we could have cut this down by $200 easy.
Yeah.
Knowing what we know now, if we would come back to Chiang Mai, I would get a cheaper place that would probably be just as nice. There's so many places I know where I could cut expenses.
But you'd be further out of the city.
Well, even here, if you go across, I know it's a studio, so we know we like the 1 bedroom, but we could live in a studio and we wouldn't have a problem. And what's the place across Neiman Haman? I think it's like $5,000 baht a month, and that's what.
With the pool?
Yeah, with the pool. Was that $150?
Yeah, that's
for a studio.
Yeah, it's so cheap.
Yeah, so you really can cut the expenses if you want to.
So we got all that. So let's say someone is, let's say someone's in their 20s, of guys, or someone's in their 40s. What advice would you give them kind of differently if they want to do something like this?
Well, the person in their 20s just has more time.
Yeah.
I already got my son investing in a Roth IRA because he's seen what our goal was. He's like, well, I want to do that too. And I'm like, well, this is how you have to start. It's the longer time you have, the better off you are. If you have to wait till you're 40 or 50, you just have to put that much more away in order to retire at your retirement goal. But, if you can start in your teens or in your early 20s and you've got, that length of time to let that stuff compound, you just see the money exploding. And there's going to be ups and downs. That's kind of part of it. Just. And believe me, there was times I was freaking out, especially in 2008 when it went down to like 6,000. The market was down to 6,000. I was like, oh my gosh! But now it's what, 18,000? So that's a pretty good increase, and we kept buying during all those low times.
So I'm gonna give everyone super basic layman's, pretty much foolproof advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I encourage you guys to go, find someone who knows what they're talking about, or maybe read a book. But I'm thinking, pretty much everyone in the world, no matter how young or how old you are, just do the most basic thing possible. It's the Roth IRA that you had mentioned is a way where you can save up to, I think it's $5,500 a year, tax-free. So, there's no reason not to do that because you end up saving money on income tax. So if you have any kind of job, it's a no-brainer to do. And I just did the math. That's $83 a month. So if you save $83 a month and just kind of put it into your Roth IRA, and you can set that up, pretty easily, online through some kind of website. And if you don't do anything else besides that, and especially if you don't ever sell it until you really have to, especially don't sell it when it's low, you probably do okay. And if you don't know what to buy, just buy an index fund. So Vanguard has one that I buy called VTI, and it's basically their entire the entire stock market, and there's very, very low, like the lowest fees possible. There's no trade commission, so that's what I would recommend everyone right now, especially if you're young. But really, it doesn't matter how old you are. Just every single person, make that a goal and say, I want to make an extra $83 a month, or I want to cut my expenses so I have an extra $83 a month. I'm going to put it in this fund.
Right. I wish I could remember. I can't remember the guy's name I read, but he called it like the latte factor. He says instead of buying that $5 cup of coffee, every single day, take that money and invest it, and just something as simple as that. If you can curb, that one cup of coffee and add it, and there's your money right there.
Yeah, and my math's not that good, so I'm not gonna do it. But I would bring the bet that if you started doing that when you're, let's say you got your first job when you're 18 or something, right, and you've been doing that now, until you're 45, and you let that interest compound, man, it'd be worth a lot of money.
Oh, seriously, yeah. That's the whole thing, and that's, I think, the hardest thing for people to realize is, that it takes time. I'm sorry, I'm not going to win the lottery. I'm not going to, I'm not a NFL superstar. I'm not going to have that kind of money. It's not just going to be dropped in my lap. So my goal was it's going to take time, and that's hard for some people.
So do you think that you had like special circumstances, or do you think anyone in that? So let's say your schoolmates that grew up in Mississippi, if they had the same mentality, do you think they would be able to have done the same thing?
I think they can, but again, as I told you before, I said we were in very fortunate situations to have the jobs that we did and work how we did, and was able to save the money that we were able to. Some people probably couldn't put away as much as we were able to. But, okay, so maybe it's not 45, but maybe 55, or even if it is 60, but comfortably, I always said I just don't want to be working unless I have to when I'm older. If I want to go back when I'm 65 or 70 and teach and volunteer at a school or do something, yeah, okay, but that's on my terms. I don't want to have to do anything. But, and I know there's some people out there that, have unfortunate circumstances that are just beyond their control, and, and they're just scraping by, and it's tough living. I lived like that. I lived paycheck to paycheck in the beginning, but when I had the opportunity to get ahead, I put money away instead of spending it on things. We spend it on experiences. So that's kind of a philosophy we got from somebody else: experiences over things. So we don't accumulate the fanciest car, the biggest house, or the newest clothes, and we used it for travel or to save.
I like that a lot. And I do want to say that, there are people who, there's a big difference though. So I don't want people thinking like, oh, poor me, because that mentality does not help really anyone. Right. If you're in a position where you are struggling, you have unfortunate circumstances, then it sucks, and you can fight through it. But if you're just like an average person, don't think that no one else has these problems, because, everybody goes through struggles, and it's okay to go through the hard times. I was dead broke 2 years ago. Like, I literally could not afford to even fly back to the US. I was that broke. But instead of, saying like tough me, poor me, I was like, okay, what's the 5-year plan or the 10-year plan? And I think as long as you kind of think that, then everybody will be okay.
Right. It's feasible, but even if you have to start small, even if it's $5 a day or even less, you can do it if that's what you want. But you need to have the mindset that that's your goal. My goal from an early age was I want to retire by this age. I want to be able to save enough money that I can retire at this age, and we were fortunate enough to do it.
Well, congrats again.
All right, thank you.
I hope you guys enjoy your rest of your travels through Europe, on that 2-week cruise to Fort Lauderdale, down to Central America, and then I'm sure we'll be in touch because it's been fun.
All right, absolutely. I appreciate it, Johnny. Thanks.
Thanks for being on the show.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.